I hope. It's a bit of a modelling video, this one, isn't it, after the last one? Winning at Wembley. One of the greatest days in the last 20 odd years. Maybe one of the greatest days ever, actually. Especially for a lot of younger supporters. And we talk about peaks and troughs in football and highs and lows, don't we? And there's all these cliches. But I think if anything sums up that those cliches are based in reality, it's got to be this week. From Wembley on a glorious sunny bank holiday Monday to a Friday when some of those heroes will be finding themselves looking for another club. It's that is peaks and troughs, you know. Some of those lads have had what could possibly be the greatest day of their career, and a week later, you know, they're looking for new employment, looking for new clubs. Some of them will have to move cities, move house, all that upheaval. It's not all bad news. Some players have been offered new deals, and I'll come to that in a bit. But it's quite a sad day. Not just because of what they've achieved on the pitch, and you don't want to lose anybody, do you? You find sometimes you know they might not be able to make the step up. Sometimes you know they might be coming towards the end of their careers. But because you feel like you've been on a journey with them, even though you're in the stands and they're on the pitch, it is quite hard to let them go. And I was talking to my dad today. When I was a kid, I was always like really interested in transfer rumours, do you know what I mean? Not so much now I'm older, I'm like, I believe we've signed a player when I see him on pitch, do you know what I mean? I don't really go in for any gossip or any of that, but every year really interested, ringing club call and racking my mum and dad's phone bill up, desperate to know who's coming in. And that's what you always wanted to do. You always wanted to bring players in, but you never wanted to let any go, because you'd got that connection with them. And I felt that again with this group, not only because they've won at Wembley, although absolutely fantastic, but all season Wednesday's had these behind the scenes videos showing what it's like on the inside and in the dressing room. And it's not only what they've achieved on the pitch, but they just seem like a really, really good set of lads. And I think that makes it a little bit tougher. And I was talking to my dad today, and I was saying how heartbroken I was when Viv Anderson and Danny Wilson left to go to Barnsley when I was younger. Both coming to the end of the careers, you can't keep them forever, but I almost felt like I knew them because of that, them few seasons and what they achieved. And my dad was talking about, he felt the same when he was a kid and they lost John Hickton and Johnny Quinn got sold to Rotherham, you know, and it does devastate you when you're that age. And I didn't think I'd ever be feeling that way again. I mean, some seasons the retained list comes out and some players get released and you're like, well, whatever. And there's been the odd time of last decade or so players have got released and I've actually almost been cheering, but these just seem like such a great group of lads, and it's always sad to see things split up. But Bob Paisley, he always used to say it, didn't he? You've got to strengthen when you're doing well. You can't cling on and hold a side together too long. And you've got to build on your successes. That's the time to build, and I'm sure Darren Moore's got a list of targets, and hopefully we will strengthen ready for Championship next season. But there is a sense of sadness today, letting some of these lads go. I can't believe I'm talking like this. I'm a 47-year-old bloke, but it does affect you, doesn't it, emotionally? Anyway, let's have a look at the details. Who's staying, who's going, who might be staying. Now, Wednesday I've exercised the option to keep hold of Barry Bannon. That should go as no surprise. Club captain. We've all seen what it means to him, and there's been games this season when he's been absolutely superb. Best player in division, involved in setting up more goals, more key passes than any other player in division. And a bit of a talisman for the club. He's getting on, but he's got that experience, be vital in Championship. Absolutely no surprise at all that they've exercise that option. Also, and fantastic news this, and I'm absolutely delighted because he's probably my favourite Wednesday player is George Byers. I got in quite a few debates with people earlier on its season about George Byers, and when he got injured, and I was getting in these debates where people were saying one player shouldn't make that much difference. If you can't win when one player's out, you shit and blah blah blah. But the quality that lad's got, and I've said it in so many videos, I'm sure you're all probably bored of me saying it, but he dictates the rhythm of a game with his passing ability. The speed of his passes, whether he puts it into feet or whether he puts it 2 yards in front of somebody for them to get a motor on, dictates the rhythm and pace of a game. There's not that many players that you can get to do that, not at this level, and not probably for what we've outlaid for him. Absolutely fantastic player, and I know he's been injured, and he had a few injuries last season as well. But for me, he's worth that gamble. He's really worth that gamble, because when he is playing, he's absolutely superb, and he's been an absolute pivotal part of our successes this season. And we've had a fantastic day out at Wembley, but I still maintain that if George Byers don't get injured, we finish top 2. So, absolute no-brainer to exercise that close to get George staying on. Josh Windass, again, 29-year-old, second top goal scorer this season, and another one that missed a vital spell of the season. Just when he was on fire as well, and he scored something like 5 goals in 7 games when he got injured. Again, if he's not out during that spell, I do think we're finishing top 2. Absolute no-brainer to sign him. Several reasons. One, he's a match winner. Not just proven on Monday at Wembley, but throughout the season he's proved he's a match winner. The Newcastle game, several league games. But also, and I think this is going to be vital for us, especially when we move into Championship, he's probably our quickest attacking player. We don't have that much pace at top end of pitch, and somebody like him who can beat somebody sharply and get away over 3 or 4 yards makes all the difference. So absolute no-brainer to sign him back up. Lee Gregory's another one. Okay, he's 34 years old, and he's missed spells of this season, not just with his broken face. I think he had an ankle problem. Somebody stamped on his foot earlier in the season. I think he broke his foot. But his game intelligence, and we talk about this all the time, he might not be as quick as he were 10 years ago, but his intelligence, the way he holds the ball up, brilliant. And sometimes in games it's not just about what they bring scoring goals, so you want your strikers to score goals, but Lee Gregory's a player. Sometimes you just need somebody to hold it when you've been under pressure and allow your defence and your midfield that time to get up the pitch, especially when you've been under cosh. And his hold-up play is fantastic. He uses his body really well. He links it really well. And it's that game intelligence we talk about, that cross that he put in for Windass to put us into Championship. A lot of players, especially knackered, that stage at game, they might just try and put that first time cross in, and it probably hits body at first man. But it's that little dummy cross, and then he goes on the outside, drops shoulder, and he probably only buys himself a foot. Well, that foot is enough for him to get that ball in. He's got it up there. So, really pleased that Gregory's been offered a new deal. Absolute no-brainer. The other one's Big Dom Iorfa. He's got his extension triggered. Dom has took some right abuse this season. And listen, he's had some shit games. He started the season poorly. Started coming into some form. Had a bit of a wobble and went off again a bit. And then I think the last 3 or 4 games he's really showed what we know he's all about. And don't forget, this is a player that played at Yale just 2 years ago. I know he's had his injury problems, but I think he's really showed the value that he brings to the squad. And again, one of our quickest players, and he's got that recovery pace, and he showed that several times against Peterborough over both legs. When you're playing against teams who've got quick counter-attacking players and they're playing the ball over the top, having someone who can get back there and make a vital tackle, you've got to have them. they're absolutely a key component in a back three or a back four or whatever. Now I know the argument is you shouldn't be having to have defenders making last-ditch tackles. Well, no, you shouldn't. But every team in the world does them. Even Man City, you see players that are having to make last-ditch tackles because things aren't always perfect. So if you've got a centre half with that yard of pace who can get back, no-brainer for me. And finally, Liam Palmer. What a season Liam Palmer has had. It was my player this season. I think it's been supporters' player this season. Well, that reminds me, I've not sent him that packet of hobnobs yet. But yeah, fantastic season he's had. The energy he's shown, the positions he's played, and without moaning. That's another key thing here, without moaning. Some players, you know they're type to get face on if they're not playing in position they're in. Or the position that they want to, rather, you know. There's some players, I don't know, diminutive Latin players who might be really suited to playing in a sort of inside left position, but who demand to play at centre forward, or they're not going to play, or get on team bus, things like that. So a player like Liam Palmer, who probably, I suspect, is most comfortable as a right back, will he play midfield for us? Of course he will. Will he play centre half for us? Of course he will, Gaffer. Will he play left back for us? Of course he will, Gaffer. Fantastic attitude, fantastic professional, and he's had a fantastic season. His performance, you know, it's not just about having a great attitude, and he has got one. But he's also matched that great attitude this season with some great performances all over the park. He's chipped in with a career best with goals. In fact, I think he's probably doubled what he's scored in the rest of his career combined. Great season, experienced player, knows what it means to play for the club, and I genuinely think that part of the success of this season has been that connection with the fans and the players. And I think having someone who's been here so long like him, who's one of us on the pitch, I think that's really helped with that connection with fans and players. So great season, absolute no-brainer to re-sign him. Now, players who've been offered contracts but who are out of contract. So the first one is Callum Paterson. I'm delighted, because anyone who knows me, anyone who watches these videos knows I love Callum Paterson, and I've said it a long time. He'd be in my 11 every week, whether that's a left wing, right back, centre forward, centre midfield. You've got to have players like that in your team. And when people don't rate what Paterson does, it frustrates me. In the same way that fans of other clubs could never appreciate what Carlton Palmer did. But if you talk to Wednesday fans, or if you talk to Coventry fans, or Forest fans, they'll tell you what he did for them. And it frustrates me. It frustrates me most when Wednesday players can't see what Paterson does. Absolute no-brainer. Again, I'll keep saying that a lot, I need a new catchphrase. But absolutely common sense to offer Callum Paterson a deal. The other thing is, Paterson's played in Premier, he's played in Championship, he's been promoted from Championship, and it's experience. And going up into this division, that experience is going to be vital, because it's so important that we may not challenge, but it's so important that we at least consolidate in this division. And to do that, you need players who know their way around. So Pato, I'll say it again, no-brainer. Also offered a new deal, Marvin Johnson. Marvin Johnson is one of the most frustrating players I've seen in a Wednesday shirt. He does frustrate me. He does have me chucking my arms in the air sometimes when I think he should make a run, or sometimes when I think he should hold, sometimes when I think he should take people on and he don't, or sometimes I think when he takes people on and he should put a first time. I just find him a very frustrating player, but what I can't doubt is his quality on ball. And sometimes I'll get in these debates with people. He hasn't done out today. He's more or less stood still. He's only put them 2 crosses in for winning goals. Well, that'll do me. What was score? We won 2-0. All right. He is very frustrating, but his left foot, he was for me, I think the only player in that division last season that was as good a crosser of the ball as Marvin Johnson were probably that Leif Davis at Ipswich. Probably took better crosses at ball in that division by a mile. Coming up into Championship this season, it's going to be tough. We're going to be playing against better teams with tougher defences than we faced down there. You know, we're not going to be facing defences next season like Cambridge's defence or Forest Green's defence. Well, Forest Green's defence at home anyway. They're going to be tougher games, and you've got to be able to nick goals where you can. And if you've got a player with a left foot like him who can put that sort of delivery in, you've got to re-sign him, or at least attempt to re-sign him. Because, I'll put it this way, if you try and sign a 21-year-old kid who can cross a ball like Marvin Johnson, it's probably going to cost you £5 or £6 million. That's the harsh reality of it. That's the stark truth of the matter. So, common sense to offer him a new deal. The final player who's had a contract who's been offered a new deal is Fizz, Delibishiro. And that's an interesting one because this is a saga, and it is a saga, that has been running on for most of this season. And there's been several times where it's been put on hold because we've got a big fixture on, or it's been put on hold because we're going into playoffs, and there's all this sort of, is it, won't he, will he? And he started the season fantastically well. The first 3 or 4 games, I was delighted, and I thought, this is his season. He's going to kick on this year, and he's going to fulfil that potential that we all know he's got. And he's still a young lad, and he's still got the opportunity to fulfil that potential, which is why I think we've offered him a deal. But all that around Christmas time, the Blackpool bid, £500,000, Wednesday turn it down. Was it that his form, because his form did slump off, and it slumped right off. Was it that? I suspect, and I'm a suspicious character, but I've been watching football a long time. In my head, I've just got some sort of Machiavellian agent figure lurking in the background. Well, don't sign just yet, son. I can probably get something in Championship for you if Wednesday don't go up. And now, do you know what I mean? All that round Christmas time. And I know agents look after their clients, and I'm sure there's a lot of really honest ones out there, and that's they've got the players' best interest at heart. But as a supporter of a football club, when you see a young lad like that who starts the season really well, and then there's talk of a genuine bid from Blackpool, but then there's suddenly talk of in newspapers of AC Milan and stuff like this, I start thinking there's some spivvy on front of papers. I might be wrong, but that's how my mind works. But again, young lad, still got that potential. And if you look at the beginning of the season, the Portsmouth game round there, the first 4 or 5 games, it wasn't just the goals that were good. It weren't just the goals, because he was capable of that last season. I thought he was going to push on because his use of the ball, his passing and his decision making's right edge at box when he would attack him were better. Playing 1-2s at right time, taking a man on getting a shot at right time, and I thought he's really been listening to his coaches here. And then it bombed off. And obviously you don't know what's going on in people's personal lives, but I just think he had his head turned, and I think it's affected him, as it would do to a young lad, you know. Young potential, makes sense to offer him a new deal. I know a lot of people will think that's a bad idea. I know he's done naught to earn one. But if we can get even a fraction of what he was doing at the beginning of the season, but a higher level in Championship, if nothing else, you'd increase in his value. Which then brings us to probably the toughest part of it, which is the players who've been released, and that this is where I've had that audible sensation again that I had when we released Viv Anderson when I was a young kid. And John Arks getting flogged, and don't start roaring about that 30 years ago. Right. First one, David Stockdale. Obviously, Dawson's come in, made himself number 1 keeper. Stockdale's not getting any younger. In goalkeeping terms, he's probably got some years left in him if he really wants to. It's not like being an outfield player. But again, we've got young Pierce Charles, Northern Ireland, I think under 23 keeper in there. Maybe it's time for him to come on and become backup. I would like to see Stockdale involved somewhere in club though. So many interviews I've seen this season when he talks so well about the club, talks with real common sense. I watched his Under the Cosh podcast that he did with Parkin and them other lads, and he just comes across as a really, really great bloke. And I know you can't keep people around the club just for being a great bloke, but I'm sure that behind the scenes and with his experience as a goalkeeper, I'm sure there's some way we could get him involved in there. And like I said, we young keepers on the books like Pierce Charles, having somebody like Stockdale to draw on their experience, I'm sure that'd help him massively. So I do hope that it's not the last time we see him at the club. And at the beginning of the season, he came in, and I think he played a vital part, not just in the games, and he kept some clean sheets. But that experience, I think, rubbed off on other players. I think some of that experience will have rubbed off on Cam Dawson, because we were joking quite a lot about the way that he was, wasting time, really. Gamesmanship, shithousing, whatever you want to call it. And when you're a team over the last 10 years, we haven't done any of that. We've been too nice. And whilst he's a nice kid, he's got that experience and he knows when to do that, and he don't care, and he'll have a bit of a joke and upset away fans sat behind him in Leppings Lane by falling on a ball and staying on it for 3 minutes, you know. And I think him playing at the beginning of the season sort of put a bit of that mentality into the team. These are the things that we've got to do, and I think he played a vital part there. So sad to see him go if it is the last we see of him, but I think he's done a great job for Wednesday on and off the pitch. Next we come to Jayden Brown. I don't think it's any surprise that he's been released. There's several reasons for that. I think first reason is because obviously he's a left back and we don't play away back four. You know, his most comfortable position is as a left full back. We play away back three, so that's the first. So he has had to play a left-sided centre half at times where he's had some good games, some indifferent games, and he had one stinker there. But whenever we're playing with just one wing back on either side, it's always going to be behind Marvin Johnson, because when you're playing with wing backs, they've got to be brilliant crossers at ball. Now he put a lovely little pass in for Patterson's goal against Peterborough the week, but in terms of delivery into the box, Marvin Johnson's previous history as a winger just will always put him ahead. And I think if you're being fair to Jayden Brown as well, that's the other thing. He's always going to be an understudy to Marvin Johnson. You know, he's more defensive minded. He's not as good a crosser of a ball as Marvin. You know, that's just a football fact. And I think it's probably only fair to the lad to say, well, go and see if you can get some games somewhere else. It's tough for him, and like I said, he seems like a smashing kid, and I've almost got to stage at thinking like a kid again myself. I don't want anybody to leave, but tough decisions have got to be made, and I'm not too surprised with this one. It's funny, when he first arrived at the beginning of last season, and Darren Moore, if you remember, we went into probably 5-10 days to go before the beginning of the season. We've only got 9 pros on books, and Jayden Brown came in as one of them, and Wednesday took a while to gel. They were getting results, but in terms of the football we played and having a sense of identity, it took a while to gel. And we played a 4-2-3-1 and a 4-3-3, and Jayden Brown were one of the better players during that period, and I think a lot of people forget that we were playing a 4-3-3 and he was on the left side of the midfield three. And he was one of our better players. He brought some real energy in there. He brought something that we do lack in midfield, is he brought some real pace in there as well. And obviously he sort of fell victim when we moved away from that to the 3-5-2. But for the beginning of last season, I thought he was a bright spark. But I can understand why they've let him go. And wish him all the best. I really wish him all the best. I hope he can go somewhere and make a really good career for himself, as I do with all of them, in all honesty. Ryan Galvin, and this is where I was talking about Reece James earlier, his long spell ending, but why I think we might be seeing him again is Jaden Brown's going, Ryan Galvin's going, we ain't got anyone else on that left hand side, so I'm almost convinced myself that these two going means that James might be someone who's in pipeline to come back. I saw him in the Cup, was it last year before last, against Everton, Galvin. I really like the look of him. I mean, alright, he was thin, not filled out really, and obviously playing a very good team there. But I was impressed with what I saw of him. Really impressed with what I saw of him. And he played a game against Exeter, I think they were in Cup. Again, I was impressed. Bags of energy, really good going forward on ball, nice crosser at ball. He's had these long spells away, and I'm sure that he'll have been getting checked, and coaches and scouts will have been watching him and see how much he's progressed. I'd like to see him in and around first team and see if he could have done anything. But that's football. You can't keep everybody on. But I will be very keen to keep an eye on his career and see if he goes on to do anything, because I have liked what I've seen when he has been in and around first team. Also released, Ben Hennigan. I feel for Hennigan. We had all those problems last season, you may remember, conceding headed goals, really weak. In fact, you can have a look at some of my old videos, I'll stick links in or whatever, or in corners, have a look, because we went through a stage we conceded 7 headed goals in 3 games or something daft. And Hennigan come in as part of that summer recruitment drive to try and solve that problem. And he did, because that lad would head anything. Absolutely head anything. And I really liked him. In terms of our playing out front back, I weren't so sure that was his strength. But if you're playing 3 at back, you can have other 2 playing ball out, can't you? I liked him because he was a proper defender. And I also liked him because it proved to me that Darren Moore was looking at things in an objective way and saying, right, what caused us problems last season? This and this. Conceding headers. Right, well, let's get someone in who's going to help us not concede headers. Common sense transfer. I liked him when I did see him play, and of course then he suffered that terrible injury, and which put paid to his season. He's had that long hard road to recovery, and he's back now, and hopefully he can pick up another club, and I don't think he'll have any problem picking up another club, to be honest with you. I think he's 28 years old. As a centre half, he's probably still got his peak years ahead of him, probably the next 2 or 3 years. So I'm sure he'll get a club, and I'm sure everyone wishes him best wishes for wherever he ends up, because again, just come across as a lovely lad who'd give his all for his shirt, and as supporters, that's all you want. The final 2, these are the toughies, aren't they? Jack Hunt's going. That is tough, because I think in modern history, Jack Hunt's one of them players that everybody is going to remember fondly. There was a first spell under Carlos, and obviously then he went to Bristol, and then he came back. And I would genuinely say this, and I think I've said it earlier last year in some videos as well. I genuinely think Jack Hunt were better when he came back than he were the first time that we had him. Bit older, more experienced, but still got plenty of legs. And last season I think he was really, really good. Really good, Jack Hunt. I thought he was better than in his first spell. I know then he had a bit of illness. I think it was around the Shrewsbury Sunderland game, and I didn't think he looked quite the same after that. And then of course this season he's had quite a few injuries, have missed large spells, and obviously the form of Liam Palmer has kept him restricted. But I think that's another thing you've got to thank Jack Hunt for, because I think having Jack Hunt back and in the form that he was in last season, like I said, I think he was better than his first spell. I think that's pushed Liam Palmer onto an high level of himself by having that competition. the 10k a day that Liam Palmer did last summer, raising money for charity, I think helped him massively as well, by the way. But I think having Jack Hunt back and playing well really pushed Liam Palmer to get them levels up with competition for places. And he has found it tough this season. He's not played that many games. But then he's come back in at end, scored that winning penalty, come on at Wembley. His last game for club, but a fitting last game for club. I'm really pleased for him that he's gone out with a winner's medal and helped Wednesday to a promotion. And albeit when he first joined, he was hoping that promotion a bit at Premier League, but not meant to be. But I'm glad he had his day at Wembley and got to lift a cup with Wednesday and get that winner's medal. And he'll go with everybody's best wishes. Jack Hunt, he's been a terrific player for Wednesday. 5 years in 2 different spells. The final one is Dennis Adeniran. I don't know why, but this is the one that's stuck in my head the most. And I think it's probably because Dennis just comes across as an absolutely fantastic bloke. Always radiating positivity. It's important to be around people like that, rather than miserable gets all the time. He brings energy. I like him in midfield. He can tackle. He can score blockbuster goals. But again, the understandable side of it is, from Darren Moore's point of view and the club's point of view, is he has really struggled with injury since he's been here. He's 24. He missed a spell last season after having a good start. Got injured last Christmas, was out for remainder of the season. Then this year came in 4 or 5 games looking good, played in midfield and as a right wing back. Then again, sort of mid-September, he's injured again, out for months. And it's a shame because Dennis is a player that, if he'd not had those injuries, I think he would have been an absolute crowd favourite, because he's got that dynamism, he's got pace, he can take a man on, he can cross, and he can shoot. That is really everything you want in a midfield player, isn't it? So I'm a little bit gutted that Dennis hasn't been offered a new deal. I don't think he'll have any bother finding a new club either, because he's one of them that, like I said, if you can keep him fit, he becomes an absolute snip for somebody on a free. He really does. If he can go somewhere and get himself in a first team established, and if he can just keep himself fit, somebody's got a fantastic player on their hands, and a fantastic player with a terrific attitude. I think Dennis is the one that sticks in my head really with that list, him and Jack Hunt. But I feel bad for all of them, because as I said right at the beginning, I know I've dragged a 5-minute video out into a 20-minute one. I can't stop talking. The highs of Wembley to this low today, but I think every Wednesday fan would wish all these players all the very best for the futures, and that they'd always be welcomed back as heroes. Really, they really would. And there's some cynics out there. I know there are. I meet them sometimes. I hear them. Heroes, third division. Don't matter. Heroes are people who represent your club in the right way. Heroes are people who represent your club and give their all. And when you see people out there in the shirt giving their all, that's enough for supporters. And that doesn't matter whether you support Manchester City or Accrington Stanley or Sheffield Wednesday. You want to see players with the right attitude giving everything. And if you win things together on top of that, that's a bonus. So, great set of lads this season. A season that will never be forgotten. Their efforts will never be forgotten, because they've all played a part in some way or other, these lads. Every one of them, whether it's a goal line tackle at Cambridge or whether it's a last minute equaliser against Exeter, all these lads will be remembered for the part they've played in this, what's actually been a remarkable season. As I said, I think we might see Reece James again, and I'd be delighted to see him again. I think he's a lovely footballer, great crosser at ball, And I think with Galvin and Brown going, that's an area that now definitely needs strengthening. Pleased we've offered Gregory and Patterson new deals, and then it'll be interesting to see who we bring in on top and bolster this squad now, because there's a decent core there. Dawson, Ehekwe, Volks, Bannon, Gregory, down your spine. And I always say, if you've got a good spine, you're halfway there. That's another video I did, you can have a look at that. Like, share and subscribe. I'm just getting that in because I keep getting emails from YouTube saying you never ask people to subscribe. Tell them. But it's a bit like begging, innit? But anyway, like, share, subscribe. All those three things do different things. I don't know what, I just can't remember, but they're very important. There's a little bell down there and I'll press that and then you'll know when my next video comes up. So yes, player release day. Very sad. Very sad to see a team broken up that's give us the most memorable season. God, genuinely actually, probably the most memorable season I can remember. To get the points that we did, to get the wins that we did, to get the clean sheets that we did, to break all the records that we did, to finish with the highest number of points nobody's ever been promoted on, to getting pasted 4-0 away from home in a playoff game. Players coming back from injury. Jack Hunt coming out of the abyss after not being on park for 28 games or whatever, and casually stepping up and putting winning penalty away. To overturning this mindset that we had where we always conceded in last 5 minutes, we're suddenly always winning in last 5 minutes. It's a truly remarkable season, and these lads have all played a part, and we'll all be eternally grateful and welcome them back, and we'll always have their memories of them and what they did for Wednesday. Could feel the voice going there again. I am a soft shite, me, you know. I get worse as I get older.